It was a typical school day sans a few discussions about the swim class later this morning. Some of the more degenerate members of the class were talking about which girl had the biggest boobs or ass. Yahiko, in particular, was distressed at the fact that all the busted chicks were in the other classes. That guy definitely needs to set his priorities straight. Just like me. Sake Anaga-chan, if you participate in swim class, I'll concede defeat to you. Without warning, I found a cane pressed against my sides, being utilized similarly to a spear. Sakayanagi had definitely been more open about her brutality in recent days. Do I deserve it? Yes. Should I stop teasing her? Yes. Would I stop teasing her? No. It still surprises me how an uncouth animal like yourself managed to rally half of our class to your favor. Now, that's just harsh. At least make your compliments sound good, Sakayanagi. Did you know Sato Naka is into lolis? I randomly brought up a topic that I was sure would catch Sakayanagi off guard. Seemed like it worked, judging from the stunned expression on her face. What? Ha. Catching Sakayanagi off guard would never not be entertaining. The reactions make it worth being stabbed with a cane. Please do not project your own preferences onto innocent people, Sakayanagi smoothly retorted. How depraved do you think I am, Sakayanagi? I don't think I'd entertain dating a loli. Not now, not ever. I actually have a height requirement, you know? You've got to be at least 5 feet 1 inch minimum. Whatever makes you sleep well at night, Sakayanagi-chan. The thought of your dead body does the trick. Oi oi oi. Something's seriously wrong with that statement, Sakayanagi. What happened to the prim and proper, although a little arrogant, little girl from a couple of weeks ago? Bring her back, Tabia. I didn't know you were into necrophilia, Sakayanagi-chan. I'm not. Your depraved lolicon mind made you assume I'd do such things to your dead body. Did you just admit you're a loli? Stab ouch. That's enough height jokes for the day. I wouldn't want Sakayanagi to be pissed off for real. She might actually plot my death. I wonder if Ayanokaji is faring better than me. Well. Probably not. That unknown Horikita girl looks like she'll stab Ayanokaji if he looks at her the wrong way. I think I'll take Sakayanagi over her 11/10 times. On the contrary, I find such jokes genuinely inappropriate. It's a misrepresentation of who I am as a person. Please take note of this, Uzumaki-kun. She does feel genuinely mad at that, more so than my jokes about her disability. Well, as I said, the banter's over. I had gone a little overboard this time. I genuinely apologize for my jokes earlier, Sakayanagi-chan. Sakayanagi turned her head to me and gave me a genuine smile. So long as you understand. But do know that I won't forget about this, low-life garbage Uzumaki-kun. That's just unnecessary, Sakayanagi. However, I might forgive you if you lick my feet and call me Arisu-sama. Your threats come off as attempts to get closer to me, Sakayanagi-chan. Do you want to say something to me? Sakayanagi blushed. My heart already belongs to another. Sorry, Uzumaki-kun. That's good. It'll be a massive headache if Sakayanagi somehow is sexually attracted to me. I might just not be able to take it. I could already hear Hashimoto's voice teasing me about being a lolicon emperor. I would rather just die. I hope he returns your feelings, Sakayanagi-chan. He will after I bury him. Does she not know how that can be taken the wrong way? I'm sure she meant that in the sense of domination. But damn it, Sakayanagi, get a grip of your power wank fantasies. You're definitely a necrophiliac freak, Sakayanagi-chan. Phew phew phew. She didn't even bother denying it. I give up. Maelstrom. Before we knew it, swim class was over. Just as I expected, I was the fastest swimmer in class. Sensei even said that I nearly matched the world record since I tallied 21.88 seconds. I could probably go a little faster, but I could feel my muscles aching if I even tried pushing for more. You're plenty quick, Emperor-kun. I turned my head to see Hashimoto approaching me, a grin plastered on his face. Alongside him were Sato Naka and the three girls, Nishikawa, Yamamura, and Nakajima. Quick is an understatement. Sensei said he nearly matched the world record. You were awesome, Uzumaki-kun. Geez, you guys are embarrassing me. But yes, continue praising me. I need this recovery after being verbally beaten down by the smug loli known as Sakayanagi. Speaking of Sakayanagi, she's currently at the left edge of the pool, submerging her feet in the water. It was a pretty sight, to be honest. Uzumaki-kun. You and Sakayanagi-san have grown very close, haven't you? I wonder if something is brewing in the air. Nakajima said. Please don't joke about something so scary, Nakajima-san. As I told you, Emperor-kun has laid his claim on his empress. He did so on the first day, Hashimoto chimed in. I swear this guy gets a kick whenever I get annoyed. Perhaps this was karma for all the jokes I've made about Sakayanagi. If so, I will now begin repenting for my sins, even if I believe in Shintoism. Hashimoto then retold the story wherein he teasingly called Sakayanagi princess, only for me to interject and joke about calling her empress instead. Unfortunately, Emperor-kun has been continuously rejected to this day. Between you and me, I think this entire class leader debacle is just Emperor-kun proving his superiority against his empress so he can date her. That's it. I've had enough. So I picked up Hashimoto and threw him in the pool without warning, incidentally also splashing Sakayanagi, who was happily kicking a foot around. Sato Naka palmed his face at what had happened. I told Hashimoto-kun to cut back on the jokes. I guess he deserved that, the kind Sato Naka-kun said. The girls opted to laugh at Hashimoto's misfortunes instead. Wait, how come you were able to pick him up effortlessly? Because I'm awesome. Hashimoto isn't that heavy. It's easy to manhandle that guy, I replied. Well, I'm still surprised, Uzumaki-kun. You picked him up like he was a piece of paper, Nishikawa asked. Remind me not to piss you off again. How nice of you to return to the world of the living again, Hashimoto. Tell me if you enjoyed your trip to hell because I'll willingly send you back. I have a height requirement for girls, you see. So, did Sakayanagi-san pass? Yamamura asked. Maybe in Sato Naka's case, she passes. With flying colors, I might add. The closest lolicon of our class blushed in embarrassment and jumped back into the water. Is he actually a lolicon? No, but there's a funny story about why Hashimoto and I joke about it. He accidentally blurted out that Takabana-senpai is. Hashimoto could definitely start up a career in trolling. Is what? Nishikawa asked. A cute loli senpai, Hashimoto finished, with a faux disappointed expression on his face. PFFTT. Seriously. I can't take it anymore. The three girls burst into full-blown laughter at Sato Naka's expense. Poor guy. Maelstrom. April 10th. Unknown POV. It had been precisely 9 days since the new school year had begun. As usual, it was tiring being put in the same room filled with fools pretending to be greater than what they actually were. Usually, I would find it amusing. But can't a girl be able to find peace and quiet on her birthday? I made my way through the school grounds, walking down a winding path that eventually led me to a small grove of trees. There, hidden away from the hustle and bustle of the main campus, was a little clearing with a single tree that provided ample shade from the blazing sun. It was my secret spot. While not hidden from plain sight, I've yet to find a single student who's taken sanctuary in this beautiful place. As I stepped into the clearing, I breathed a deep sigh of relief. Finally, some peace and quiet. I made my way over to the tree, feeling the soft grass beneath my feet, and settled down on the bench underneath. I leaned back against the trunk of the tree and closed my eyes, feeling the warmth of the sun on my skin. For a moment, everything was perfect. The only sound was the gentle rustling of leaves in the breeze. I could feel myself starting to relax, my muscles loosening as the stress of the day melted away. But just as I began to unwind, I heard a noise that jolted me back to reality. It was the sound of footsteps crunching on the grass, growing louder with every passing moment. I opened my eyes, turning my head to see who was interrupting my peaceful sanctuary. It was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed boy wearing the men's uniform. Seems like I'm not the only one who noticed the beauty of this spot, senpai. The blonde-haired boy said as he sent me a smile. I had seen him before, by pure chance, during lunch period about a week ago. He was flanked by more or less half of his class. It wouldn't take a genius to know that this boy led that group. Even from far away, I could tell that he had a commanding presence. But he kind of just looks like an adorable little kitten, doesn't he? A grin formed on my face as I imagined how his reaction would be. Era? Did you just assume my age, Blondie-kun? That's disrespectful to a beautiful young woman, you know. I smirked at him, trying to elicit a certain reaction. The default reaction to this situation would be him taking a defensive stance. Stereotypical nice guys like him look like they would die if it seemed they had disrespected someone. I've met plenty of people just like that, after all. However, Blondie-kun elected to stare at me for a couple of moments and chuckled. I don't assume, senpai. That's a dangerous game to play in a treacherous place like this. Blondie-kun replied with a cheeky grin plastered on his face. The words he spoke bore a stark contrast to his sunshine outward persona. Those words alone implied that he had done his due diligence to be informed about how this school actually works. To be able to gather as much in such a short amount of time. He's dangerous, isn't he? How interesting. Ah, I forgot to introduce myself. Sorry for that, senpai. I'm Naruto Uzumaki from Class 1A. Nice to meet you, he said before sitting beside me. He didn't even flinch at the thought of what he just did and acted like it was as natural as breathing. You're sitting next to the most beautiful girl in this school, be a little flustered. He's too calm. I dislike cheeky koalas, no matter how cute and capable they may be. Perhaps I could shake off his calmness if I teased him? Any normal young man would be flustered to receive such attention from a gorgeous senpai like me. Fuka Kiryuyuan, Class 2B, call me Fuka, Blondie-kun. Then I'll graciously accept your kindness, Fuka. The annoying blonde koi had the gall to laugh, having already found out about the game I was playing. While a common understanding of his response would be somewhere along the lines of someone who's sarcastic and arrogant, he wasn't either of those. If anything, he seemed amused at the trajectory of our conversation. This blondie koi-kun had immediately figured out what I intended to do and reacted in a way only he could do. How bold of you, I responded in a gentle yet challenging voice. I've never been one to reject gifts, Fuka. I chuckled at his response. What brings you here, Blondie-kun? Peace and quiet. Hardly anyone visits this spot. They're definitely missing out. His eyes focused on the soft rustling of the leaves overhead, and the gentle chirping of birds filled the air while the scent of blooming flowers and freshly cut grass wafted on the breeze. It was a peaceful and calming scene that he found himself lost in. I agree. This atmosphere is quite relaxing, don't you think? He nodded. What about you, Fuka? You've been here a lot, haven't you? More or less the same reason as you, Blondie-kun. This was the truth, as it was the only reason I came here. But, of course, fate seemed to have other plans. Not that I'm complaining. I've found someone more interesting than Manabu and Nagamo combined. How do you find school so far, Blondie-kun? He turned his head to me and chuckled. How would you react if I said I find this school as a crappy philosophical experiment by the Japanese government? I couldn't take it anymore. I let out a burst of unladylike laughter. That was, without a doubt, the most interesting and accurate description someone had of this school. I find it impressive just how fast he discovered the essence of this school. While it stands as the most prestigious school in all of Japan, the truth of the matter was, it was an experiment by the government to prove the superiority of a specific way of education in terms of molding tomorrow's leaders. To discover this much in the span of 9 days was impressive by itself. Of course, it wasn't outside of the norm for students to hold a suspicion on how this school works, given how from the first day alone, teachers have provided them with subtle hints for them to mull over. For example, lack of focus about the monthly stipend the students get. Intentionally lulling ignorant students into believing they will receive 100,000 points per month, all the free food and toiletries over the campus, and the like. The fact that this Naruto Uzumaki had managed to do all these is an indicator that I'm facing a man with high intellect and logical reasoning, or at the very least, a man with top-notch intuition. I am dealing with someone outstanding and brilliant who would no doubt be able to entertain me. That certainly is one way of looking at it, Blondie-kun. Something that you also agree with, Fuka. I turned my head to him and smirked before turning away from him. We remained as we were for a good couple of minutes, taking in the comfortable breeze and appreciating the calm. No words were shared between us. The conversation was over, after all. Perhaps in the eyes of a neutral onlooker, it would have looked like we were involved, but that couldn't be farther from the truth. I'm sure he was gathering his thoughts about me, just as I am doing with him. After all, we weren't people who'd simply pass on people we found intriguing. Who knows what the future may bring? We might find ourselves as allies. Or bitter enemies. It was nice meeting you, Fuka, but I should go back now. Where are you going? The convenience store. I'll be making dinner for later, you see. A cook, huh? I wonder if he was any good. Well, perhaps I could ask him to cook for me in the near future. I don't think it'll be long until our paths cross again. All right. You may leave now, Blondie-kun. Grappling for control until the end, Fuka. He chuckled before he stood up and left. What an interesting birthday gift from the heavens. Maelstrom. Naruto's POV. It's been about 2 weeks since my fateful encounter with Fuka Kiryuin. Aside from Saka Yanagi, she was most definitely the most interesting figure I've met in this school. She gave off an aloof air to her, yet it did not distract from the fact that she was incredibly dangerous. I could sense how she was trying to find any weaknesses in me and how she was aiming to control the conversation to get closer to her goal. To find out whether or not Naruto Uzumaki was worth her time. And as it is right now, she has definitely found her answer. Fuka was a woman who operated depending on her particular interest. She was dangerous, skilled, and unpredictable. It wouldn't be outside the realm of probabilities to say she might be a match for me. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you asked, I have garnered Fuka Kiryuin's utmost interest. Many people have come forward with a warning that she was after me. Questions after questions were asked. Some people kept their eyes on me, most likely observing my habits and quirks. Yet, in those weeks, I haven't heard from or seen Fuka. But that's fine. It is clear as day that Fuka Kiryuin would not be a hostile threat. After all, she's a person who doesn't care about which class she is in. Not even mildly interested in playing the game students of this school found themselves addicted to. She only moves when she finds something of interest or if she can get something out of it. What a self-serving woman. But definitely someone I would like to have on my side. After all, Fuka Kiryuin can potentially be the greatest thorn to the side of my future nemesis. Miyabi Nagamo. The man who has held the entirety of the second years in his control, as well as the current student council vice president. The supposed successor to Manabu Horikita. But that's not happening on my watch. You seem deep in thought, Uzumaki-kun. Turning my head to my right, I was met by the curious gaze of Sakayanagi. The lilac-haired girl and I have grown considerably closer as weeks passed by, despite the still existing power struggle between us. Unfortunately for Sakayanagi, Katsuragi bowed out of the race and vouched for me. Thus, I was declared the leader of Class A. As good as Sakayanagi was, leadership is ultimately warranted by the will of the majority, something I've had in my cards. Of course, this doesn't mean her faction simply thinned out. Sakayanagi and her followers elected to support me to ensure classroom cohesion and unity within Class A, but they weren't just sitting idly. They were waiting for me to slip up and lose my overwhelming influence over the class. Which was honestly the best course of action for Sakayanagi. There was no use contesting my disposition as Class A leader in the meantime, considering 28 out of 40 people in Class A backed me up. What would Sakayanagi and her small army of 12 do? She doesn't have anyone on the level of Hashimoto, Katsuragi, and Satonaka to contest my influence. Just thinking about the future, Sakayanagi-chan. I can feel the challenges that lie ahead, I cryptically replied. Phew. I hope you aren't overlooking me, Uzumaki-kun. I am still the biggest thorn in your side. I wouldn't be too sure about that, Sakayanagi. The most capable? Yes. But you're no longer the biggest thorn in my side. That person doesn't even know I have my eyes on him and what he holds. Simply put, my immediate action and acclamation of influence had neutralized the threat you hold on me, at least for the time being. Perhaps that would be the case if we were in different classes. But right now, the best you can do is to be my most effective piece, my queen. I'm thinking greatest ally, Sakayanagi-chan. Phew. That being said, I still have my qualms over purposely manipulating people to do my bidding. But perhaps, I could find a counterbalance. I just need to surround myself with capable people whose visions align with my own. I don't need to fool people. I can make them believe in the vision that I hold. As different as the situation is now, I am not new to engaging in psychological conflicts. I have done this before, and I would do it again. And those on my side will come out of it unscathed. Or at least, that's what I hope for. Maelstrom Naruto's POV. I don't know what came to me when I decided to visit the school library, but here I am, right in front of its door. As I pushed open the heavy double doors of the school library, the familiar scent of old books and musty paper filled my nostrils. As I made my way through the aisles, I couldn't help but notice the sheer volume of books that lined the shelves. Every subject, from cooking to gardening, seems to have its own section, and my eyes dart back and forth as I try to take it all in. Since I was already here, I decided to head over to the catalog station, to see if they had Nietzsche's Beyond Good and Evil. It's not a book people would expect me to read, but hey, it's just a book. I pull up the library's online database and enter in my search terms, determined to find what I need. The computer screen soon reflected that it had the book that I was looking for. Why did I choose this book in particular? I am not exactly well versed in what Nietzsche was all about, but from what Shikamaru has told me, this specific work of Nietzsche critiques traditional morality and champions a new morality of individualism, self-creation, and personal freedom. Supposedly, Nietzsche argued in this work that traditional morality, with its emphasis on self-denial, humility, and conformity, has suppressed the natural instincts and creativity of individuals, leading to a culture of herd-like conformity and mediocrity. He believes that the concept of good and evil is a product of social and cultural conditioning and that there is no objective or universal standard for morality. Instead, Nietzsche proposes a new morality of self-affirmation and individualism, in which the pursuit of power, creativity, and self-expression is the highest goal. He criticizes the idea of truth as an absolute and instead advocates for a perspectivism in which different perspectives and interpretations of the world are equally valid. Given the circumstances I found myself in, as well as my own turmoils, perhaps a thorough reading of this work could give me some semblance of resolution. I just hope to God I don't become an edgelord after this. The world already has Suzuki in it. It has already suffered enough. As I made my way through the rows, I couldn't help but feel a little overwhelmed by the sheer number of books around me. This was probably the largest library I found myself in. Finally, I spotted the section I needed and scanned the shelves, searching for the book I was looking for, but before I could pull out Nietzsche's Beyond Good and Evil, I spotted another student struggling to pick up a book. It was a silver-haired girl tiptoeing to reach up the top shelves. I focused on what she was trying to pull out and understood why she was trying to pull it out. There was one book that was obviously out of place with the philosophy section. I decided to give her a hand and pulled out the book in her stead. As I picked up the book, I heard a cute-sounding "aw" from her, probably out of surprise. I gave her the book, which she stared at for a good couple of seconds before she looked up to me. "Thank you very much." "This book was placed in the wrong genre, which was why I tried to pick it up," she said and gave me a smile. "What the heck? That's like the most adorable smile I've seen so far. She's really, really pretty too." I felt my cheeks heating up a little. Hopefully, she hadn't noticed it. Yeah, I could see that. A student probably did not bother returning it to where it belonged. How the hell did Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte make it in the philosophy section? She laughed at this, and I felt like something was tugging at my heart. "Sorry, Sakayanagi, but you're no longer the most adorable girl in school. I'm Hiyori Shiina from Class 1C. I wonder how many points it would cost to transfer her to Class A. I'll trade Yahiko just to have her in class." Naruto Uzumaki, Class 1A. Nice to meet you, Shiina-san. In most cases, I'd just call her informally, but something told me to at least be respectful to her. Not because I was intimidated, which would be incredibly funny given she gives off massive cinnamon roll energy, but because she was too pure. Or at least, she looks that way. "What book were you planning to get, Uzumaki-kun?" "Nietzsche's Beyond Good and Evil. I know it doesn't really look like a book someone like me would read, but there's no harm to it, right?" Shiina hummed in agreement. "I'm actually here to search for Raymond Chandler's Farewell, My Lovely. It's been a couple of weeks, but I still haven't managed to get my hand on one, so I'm trying to look for something in the philosophy section instead. I love to read, you see. Unfortunately, there's no one in my class that I could talk to about novels. Do you like reading books, Uzumaki-kun?" Shiina gets animated when talking about literature, doesn't she? It's really adorable. It's like a switch that turns her into an energetic girl. "I can't exactly call myself an enthusiast, Shiina-san, but I've read my fair share of books." It was the truth. While in my childhood, I hated reading with a passion, I eventually realized that I would need to be at least well-read if I wanted to learn things about politics and ruling. I'm still not overly fond of it, but I do recognize its importance. "But I do like reading some mystery novels for some reason," I added to at least reassure her that she wasn't bothering me. It seemed to be the correct answer as I saw Shiina's eyes sparkle as if she had found herself a comrade. I chuckled at her reaction before going back to the shelf where Beyond Good and Evil was and finally picking it up. Which one is your favorite? Raymond Chandler's The Big Sleep. The plot is complex and intricate, with numerous twists and turns that kept me guessing until the very end. The characters are colorful and memorable too. I actually have that book. Shiana looked totally adorable as she laughed and clapped her hands together in joy. You love mystery novels, huh? Shiana happily nodded her head at this. I do. I actually own a lot of them, she added. Really? That's cool. Perhaps we can talk about that another time, Shiana-san. Are you going to go now? She sounded a little disappointed as she said that. Not really. I'll just be reading this book here. Oh. Then can I sit with you? Sure. And just like that, Shiana's mood brightened up once more. After scanning the library, I found an open spot that was not really crowded with people in the library. I signaled Shiana that I would be sitting there. I headed towards the said table by myself as Shiana was still deciding which book she wanted to pick up. A few minutes later, I saw the silver-haired girl head to my table, carrying Nietzsche's Thus Spoke Zarathustra. It doesn't seem to be the type of book Shiana would read, but she probably grabbed it to relate to what I was reading. What a considerate girl she was. I smiled at Shiana, who returned it. The silver-haired girl then decided to sit next to me and began to open the book she had borrowed. Seeing she had begun to settle in, I returned to my own reading, hoping to get certain takeaways from this book. Shiana and I remained in the same position for over an hour, occasionally discussing what page we were currently on and if we found something interesting. Throughout the book, Nietzsche presents a range of critiques of modern society, including democracy, nationalism, and Christianity. He argues that these ideologies are ultimately harmful to individual freedom and creativity and that only a radical transformation of culture and society can lead to a new era of human greatness. Of course, I didn't finish the book. How can someone finish a book like that in a couple of hours? But basically, the point of the book was just like what Shikamaru had told me. I still haven't found what I was looking for, but I did enjoy reading it somewhat. Well, mainly because there was a cute girl next to me, but regardless, it was a fun read. Shiana-san, did you like the book? It was interesting. The central theme of the book is the idea of the Übermensch, a concept that Nietzsche presented as the next step in human evolution. The Übermensch is a free, self-reliant individual who has overcome the limitations of traditional morality and values and has embraced the creative power of life. In the book, Zarathustra encourages his listeners to embrace this new morality and become Übermenschen themselves. Shiana then continued discussing her takeaways about the book in a textbook manner before pouting. Are you somehow an edgelord, Uzumaki-kun? God, if you actually exist, please just end my life now. Where did you even learn of that term, Shiana-san? And no. Absolutely not. I'd die before I turn into one. Shiana giggled at my exasperation and patted my back. There. It's okay, Uzumaki-kun. I've read about the 5 stages of grief. You'll accept it eventually. Of course, Shiana was just joking, but words like that coming from someone like her seemed to deal a very critical damage to a poor soul like myself. I want to hide in my room for a month. That's not happening because I'm not an edgelord in the first place, Tabia. Ah, damn it. Not again. Whoa, you have a verbal tick? That's adorable. What an angel. I glanced at my watch and realized the library would close in 5 minutes. My stomach grumbled, reminding me that it was time to refuel. I gathered my things and turned my head to Shiana, who giggled upon hearing the sound. I wonder if she'll accept if I ask her to have dinner with me. Shiana-san, the library is closing in a while. Want to go grab dinner with me? Shiana immediately nodded, grabbing the book she picked up and getting up from her chair. We both returned our books to the shelf where they belonged and exited the library. The fresh air outside is a welcome relief after being cooped up in the library for a couple of hours. We walked towards the cafeteria, chatting and laughing along the way. Soon, we finished up with dinner and waved each other goodbye, but not before exchanging contact information. Shiana was adamant on sharing some mystery novels to me when we have the time, which was adorable. Ha! High school life can definitely be fun from time to time, doesn't it? Well, at least I'll have some good night's sleep before our interview with the student council tomorrow. It's got to be a morale booster, right? After Shiana disappeared from my view, I decided to call it a night and headed towards my dorm room. As I was headed to my room, 402, I saw another familiar face. Ayanokaji. I called out the brown-haired boy, who turned his head toward me. Ah, Uzumaki. While his voice sounded cold, I could definitely tell that he wasn't being hostile. He was just like that. Wait, are you in 401? I asked as I saw Ayanokaji standing in front of the dorm room right next to my own. Yeah. Are you in 402? Coincidences sure can be freaky. I laughed in response to his words. But, they were true. Coincidences sure can be freaky. Something in me tells me that my recent encounters weren't meaningless. Fuka, Shiana, Ayanokaji. My encounters with them are coincidental, but my gut tells me that I will be seeing more of them as I continue my life in this school. Maybe Niji wasn't completely wrong about fate. As I was greeted by a familiar platinum blonde-haired senpai. Welcome home, Blondie-kun. I elected to stare at Fuka Kiryuin, who found comfort sitting on my computer chair, with a bewitching stare directed at me. Like Shikamaru would say, troublesome. How did you even get here? Fuka smirked and wordlessly took out a key from her chest pocket. Where did you even get one? I'm not telling, Fuka cheekily replied. God damn it, woman. Breaking and entering is against the law, you know. But well, I don't exactly have the energy to banter with her, so I decided to go with the next best option, just throwing her out. I walked towards Fuka, took the spare key on her hand, and carried her off my chair. After which, I walked towards the door of my dorm room, opened it with one hand and promptly tossed Fuka outside before closing the door and double locking it. That was rude, Blondie-kun. I heard Fuka say from the outside. I'll just buy another spare key, you know. I ignored Fuka, took off my clothes and proceeded to sleep. This day was just too much. It's now May 1st. Mashima-sensei had just finished his discussion, where he finally introduced the class points. He told us how Class A's performance had been surprising. Apparently, it was the first time that a class hadn't lost a single point during the first month. As it stood, the class points of the first years were as follows. Class A, 1000. Class B, 650. Class C, 490. Class D, 0. Mashima-sensei also discussed how the school rates its students, but it was still vague. Essentially, it was a meritocratic system, where we were judged based on a combination of behavior and overall skill, something my classmates and I already knew after my revelation of the said fact. Sensei looked surprised at our lack of surprise at the revelation, and it was when Hashimoto pointed out that I'd gone out of my way to inform the class of how the school worked. For obvious reasons, Mashima-sensei's opinion of me had risen further. Currently, classes were over, and I found myself sitting on a bench alongside Sakayanagi, who I had invited. Of course, I had to endure Hashimoto's teasing, which was annoying. Sakayanagi-chan. Humor me for a second. Do you think this school has a point? Sakayanagi raised a lone eyebrow at my strange question. What exactly are you getting at? While on paper, building a school that would properly mold the elites that would eventually take over multiple fields in Japan is a great idea. I find it unrealistic and over the top how the Japanese government went around this project. The way I see it, this school is essentially breeding a generation of trained sociopaths. Are these the leaders the government wishes to mass produce? Sakayanagi chuckled at the points I raised, probably because of how I practically called ANHS a failed experiment. If that's how you really feel, Uzumaki-kun, why are you still here? It was a simple question, but for some reason, I realized that it was actually tough to answer. If I am already well aware of these points, why am I still here? Am I actually better than the system itself, or have I just deluded myself into thinking that way? But deep down, I knew why. I simply wanted to assert my dominance over the supposed elite of the elite. It seems you aren't as pure and noble as you initially portrayed yourself to be, Uzumaki-kun, Sakayanagi said as she focused her gaze on me. You don't have to say it. Your eyes alone told the story, Fufufu. You simply wanted to dominate people the government deemed as those amongst the best, right? Quite the paradox, given your unwillingness to resort to unsightly means. I chuckled at Sakayanaga's assessment. What a frightening woman she was. And there's nothing wrong with that. My attachment to my moral compass does not threaten my capacity to make critical decisions. Absolutely. This is why I like you, Uzumaki-kun. Even with your somewhat foolish honesty, you remain as dangerous as ever. I've yet to see a man who can utterly crush an individual yet still manage to turn them into believers of their cause until I've met you. Still bitter at how I made Katsuragi submit. Fufufu. On the contrary, I was impressed about it. That's the only reason I allow you to lead Class A alongside myself. Ha. Never change, Sakayanagi, never change. You certainly have a distinct sense of humor, Sakayanagi-chan. Sakayanagi smirked. It is a necessary skill when dealing with buffoons like yourself, Uzumaki-kun. A buffoon you cannot beat. For the time being. All you had on me was a head start, Uzumaki-kun. But the world isn't fair, Sakayanagi. As they say, the early bird catches the worm. In an environment like this, efficient action and sufficient information are the essential keys to victory. You have lost out on both counts, and thus, you suffer with the consequence of becoming one of my pieces. Era? Is the dignified Arisu Sakayanagi-chan throwing a tantrum? I teased Sakayanagi, who pouted in response. Fufufu. Definitely not. The dignified Arisu Sakayanagi-sama wouldn't stoop down to your level. But you know what? I think you and I being put in the same class is unfair for everyone else. I randomly pointed out. Sakayanagi and I make for a deadly duo that I doubt anyone in our year could match. We're only a month into our high school life, but we've already managed to gather heaps of information that I doubt any of the other classes had gotten. It was scary just how far ahead we were. At this point, the only part we have yet to scratch is how often do our theorized special exams occur and how it was conducted. It's random, but I agree. It would have been more exciting had you been in Class B. Oi, what do you mean I would be in Class B? Between us, you'd be the one placed in Class B, but I suppose I'd be able to work better with Ichino's than you would with her. How about we make a bet, Uzumaki-kun? What bet? I'll think of it in the future, but the stakes are as follows. If I win, you will have to transfer to Class B, and if you win, I will have to transfer to Class B myself. Both of us have been incredibly bored, haven't we? Regardless of what happens, I'll still beat you, Sakayanagi-chan. Fufufu. Just because of that, I'll add in the stipulation that if I win, you will have to lick my foot and call me Arisu-sama. I chuckled after hearing that joke again from Sakayanagi. She's quite persistent in that regard. Maybe if you call me Naruto-sama, I'll consider, Tabia. Mama. I'll let you live out your daydreams for a while, Sakayanagi-chan, but I must go now. Where are you going, Uzumaki-kun? Ah, that's right, I haven't told you about it. Apparently, we'll be interviewed by the student council today. Oh. Well, good luck, Uzumaki-kun. Thanks, Sakayanagi-chan. Phew. Do let me know if you notice something interesting, Sakayanagi said. I have the penchant of discovering interesting things. Be nice, and I might indulge you. Here's a fun discovery I've found out about Arisu Sakayanagi. She already knows just how pointless this school actually was. After all, if you were skilled and impressive enough, you don't need the clout of ANHS to make something out of yourself. What Sakayanagi wanted was to indulge herself in things she found interesting, and the aspect of competition in ANHS, where students do just about anything that comes to mind, serves as great entertainment for the diminutive girl. A battle with Arisu Sakayanagi would definitely be interesting. After all, I find myself curious of how I would fare against someone that skilled who was unafraid of resorting to manipulation and trickery. Which was why it's a shame we ended up in the same class. Maelstrom. As I walked towards the student council office, I expected to be slightly nervous, but all I felt was a sense of excitement for some reason. But I suppose that's partly because of my personal goal of standing at the top of this school. Being part of the student council would definitely be a massive step for that to happen. I knocked at the door, and within seconds, it was opened. Receiving me was Takabana-senpai, the student council secretary. State your name, please, Takabana-senpai asked. She probably already knew who I was, but I understand this was standard protocol for the student council. Especially with someone like Horikita-senpai in charge of it. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, from Class 1A. I'm here for the interview, I responded. Please come in, Uzumaki-kun. We've been waiting for you. Ah. Was I late, Takabana-senpai? I asked. I glanced at my watch and saw it was still 5:45, meaning I was a little early. I guess I was just weirded out by Takabana-senpai's phrases. Oh, on the contrary, you arrived early. But I suppose we could start a little early since the other applicant arrived a few minutes ago. That's a relief. I'd be embarrassed if I were to be late in my first encounter with the council, I joked. Takabana-senpai chuckled a little at my joke before signaling that I should enter the room. The student council office was a large room, with several desks placed haphazardly around the room. At the center of the room was a large table, and sitting at the head of the table was the student council president, Manabu Horikita. But he wasn't alone. On the table to his right sat the student council vice president, Miyabi Nagamo. Or as Fuka wonderfully coined, Mr. Notice Me Manabu-senpai. Scanning the room further, I found out who the other person vying for the student council was. Hanami Ichinose, the leader of Class B. The well-endowed, beautiful, strawberry blonde-haired girl, who noticed my stare, turned her head towards me and gave me a kind smile. Unlike Kushida-chan, who I met during the bus ride, Ichinose's gestures didn't look like it had any ulterior motives to it. I wonder how someone like her could survive in a twisted school like this. Please take a seat, Horikita-senpai said, gesturing towards one of the chairs. I nodded gratefully at Horikita-senpai and took a seat at the said chair, which was in front of Horikita-senpai's desk and adjacent to Ichinose's own. Naruto Uzumaki from Class A and Hanami Ichinose from Class B, a pleasure to formally meet both of you. While the student council secretary, Tachibana, prepare refreshments, do feel free to familiarize yourselves with one another. Ichinose and I thanked Horikita-senpai for the gesture before facing each other and exchanging a handshake. She has very soft hands. Nice to finally meet you, Ichino-san. I've heard great things about you from Shibata-san, I said to her, mentioning my friendly relationship with one of her classmates to help her feel at ease. You know Shibata-kun? That's great. A pleasure to meet you as well, Uzumaki-kun. Best of luck to both of us. What a kind girl. For the next couple of minutes, the four of us, myself, Ichino's, Nagamo-senpai, and Horikita-senpai, sat in comfortable silence. No one said a word and each of us opted to observe one another. There was no tension, but there definitely was a heavy air. Soon, Takabana-senpai made it to the main room, carrying refreshments. Thank you, Tachibana, Horikita-senpai said, which for some reason, led to Takabana-senpai blushing. Perhaps something was going on between them. Ichino and I followed suit and thanked Takabana-senpai, whilst Nagamo-senpai merely nodded at her. Now that you've both settled down, let's get down to business, shall we? Horikita-senpai said, immediately gaining our attention. I don't want to overcomplicate the interview process, as I believe that would be inefficient and a waste of time. I will simply ask one question for both of you to answer. What's your motivations in joining the student council? Horikita-senpai was about to continue but found himself interrupted by Nagamo-senpai. Naruto Uzumaki-kun, and Hanamiya Ichino's-chan. Quite the pretty name. You don't mind if I call you Hanami-chan, right? Ichino shook her head and returned a kind smile. Well, let's start with Hanami-chan, shall we? Nagamo-senpai suggested. It seems like the rumors weren't wrong. Miyabi Nagamo moves fast when he sees something of interest, and well. Hanamiya Ichino's definitely captured his interest, if his focused gaze were any indicator. To Ichino's credit, she didn't seem to mind Nagamo-senpai's advances and simply answered the question. Of course, Nagamo-senpai. I was a student council member and eventually became the student council president at my junior high. I had fun times during my junior high years and hoped to replicate that here. I believe that joining the student council would provide me the opportunity to create a place where all the students can enjoy our time here without worry, a place that everyone can recall fond memories of, even in the far future. Ichino gave a textbook answer that would normally ensure her entrance in the council, but something in me tells me that it didn't convince Horikita-senpai, who simply stared at her. Even I wasn't impressed by it. Ichino's response was layered with an unidentified mask. Something that contradicts her school persona. Something must have happened to Ichino's before. Nagamo-senpai, on the other hand, seemed happy at what he heard. His eyes seemed to convey the message of someone finding an interesting tidbit that he would no doubt exploit. I see your game, Nagamo-senpai. I see. Thank you, Ichino. You may now leave. We will be notifying you of the results after it had been deliberated, Horikita-senpai said. Ichino stood up, nodded at all the senpais present, and sent me a smile before leaving the student council office. Now, it's your turn, Uzumaki. I smirked at them, which somewhat unnerved Nagamo-senpai. Horikita-senpai, on the other hand, kept his usual stoic gaze. This is the school that nurtures Japan's future leaders, correct? A rhetorical question. Indeed it is, Horikita-senpai replied. Then, shouldn't it be natural for someone to attempt simulating what it would feel to lead over a group of people? Horikita-senpai, from what I've heard, you are a leader who leads by the rules. It's not necessarily a bad playbook, but I want to do something different. I paused to gauge the reactions of the people in the room. Horikita-senpai seemed more focused, whereas Nagamo-senpai bore a wide grin on his face that he immediately suppressed. Perhaps I'll tell you about my philosophy another time, Horikita-senpai. But to formally answer the question of what's my motivation. If I can be part of the student council, then why shouldn't I attempt to be part of it? That's all. I could see the smallest of smiles grace the face of Horikita-senpai. An interesting perspective. Thank you, Uzumaki. Like Ichi knows, we will be notifying you of the results after it had been deliberated, Horikita-senpai said. Thank you as well for having me, Horikita-senpai, Nagamo-senpai, and of course, Takabana-senpai. The tea was delicious. I bowed at the three before I exited the student council office. From what I could read, it is clear that Manabu Horikita and Miyabi Nagamo are embroiled in a passive-aggressive battle. One that Horikita-senpai couldn't do anything about, given he would be graduating. Well, one thing's for sure, none of them would be able to turn me into their pawn. How's your first encounter with Mr. Notice Me Manabu-senpai? The alluring voice of Fuka Kiryuin made its way to my ears. You should be careful at the things you say, Fuka. Fuka chuckled as she continued walking by my side. You're no fun. You're too cautious even to people who could hardly pose a threat to you. Because it'll be annoying otherwise, Fuka. Fuka sent me a sly grin. You mean fun? I definitely don't have the best of luck with the women that I've encountered in this school. As beautiful as they were, Sakayanagi and Fuka are absolute wild cards that might not be good for my mental health. Thankfully, it's not all bad luck. Thank God for the angel that is Hiroshina. That certainly is one way of looking at it. How bold of you to use my words against me, Naruto-kun. I laughed. Naruto-kun. It is only natural. After all, I gave you the privilege to call me Fuka, she said matter-of-factly. I shrugged. Well, it's not like it matters much. I continued walking on my way to my dorm, with Fuka following me. Of course, I could just blow her off. But I feel like humoring her. There's a lot to unpack with my first meeting with Nagamo-senpai, after all. Before we knew it, we arrived in front of my dorm room. Taking out a key from my pocket, I planned on opening my room, only to find it unlocked by Fuka, who cheekily grinned at me while she twirled around another spare key. Fuka immediately leaped to my bed and went back to twirling the key. I told you I'll just buy another one, she said. I give up. Fuka Kiryuin is a sly vixen, unlike any other woman I've encountered. But it's not like I'm actually bothered by it. As long as you're careful whenever you enter my room, I guess it's fine. I know you'd see reason, Naruto-kun. But, of course, that's the plan. I don't want Naruto-kun to get mad at me after all, Fuka replied. That's right. You wouldn't like it if I got mad, I joked. What are you going to do if you got mad, I wonder? Would you lay your hands on me like the brute you are? Don't think I haven't forgotten what you did a couple of days ago. Ah, when I threw you out. Yes. That being said, how could you not react after carrying the most beautiful woman in this school? Not even the tiniest of blush. Fuka mock protested. And give you the satisfaction from doing so? Perhaps another day, Fuka. Before I could even react, I felt Fuka's arms draped over my shoulders, her body firmly pressing to my back. She smelled incredible. The deeper she pressed herself against me, the more intense her magnificent scent became. It was overwhelming, given it had been my first close contact with a girl since I've entered this school, add on the fact that Fuka was an extremely beautiful woman. Would this do the trick? My whole body tingled upon hearing her soft voice. Her mouth was dangerously close to my ear, and the woman caught me off guard by giving it a lick. No matter how hard I resist, human physiology is a foe I have yet to defeat, and this time was no different. Are you happy now? I asked. Fuka quickly got off my back and let out a charming chuckle. I am. Good to know my womanly charms are effective on you. You're incredibly gorgeous, Fuka. Of course, what you did would affect a growing boy like myself, I dryly replied. I like honest boys, Naruto-kun. I wish I could say the same about annoying senpais. Oh, I'd rather not have you be on good terms with Mr. Notice Me Manabu senpai. I laughed at Fuka's obvious deflection and dig at Nagamo senpai. Quite the massive pervert. That Nagamo senpai, I said. HOH. What happened? I was interviewed alongside Hanamae Ichinos, the leader of Class B. Nagamo senpai couldn't keep his eyes off of her. I bet he's already coming up with plans to capture her. Even if Horikita senpai rejects her, the vice president has a veto power, right? Fuka nodded. This Ichinos. She's incredibly beautiful and popular, right? Upon seeing my nod, Fuka snorted in amusement. Then you're probably right. Manabu would probably reject that Ichinos because he wouldn't want Nagamo to influence her. Nagamo, on the other hand, would play the long game, try to find her weaknesses and vulnerabilities, and twirl around the idea of giving Ichinos what she wants. I raised an eyebrow at that. It seemed like there's a dispute on ideology between Horikita senpai and Nagamo senpai that made Horikita senpai incredibly weary of Nagamo senpai. What does Nagamo want to happen? Create an ultimate meritocratic system. A system where those at the top would stand tall, and the bottom feeders stand to suffer with no one to protect them, huh? Quite barbaric, isn't it? In its most ideal sense, it is a fair vision, but considering how society actually works. Is he an idiot? Fuka seemed to find amusement in my words as she laughed. A big one, but a powerful one as well. He has most of our year in his control, mainly because of the promises that he has made. That said, it would be a fair assumption that Miyabi Nagamo is the strongest student in this school. And his inevitable placement as student council president would just cement that. Do you think you could defeat him, Naruto-kun? I smirked at Fuka. Who said anything about Nagamo becoming the student council president? Fuka's eyes widened before she proceeded to clap her hands, as if she managed to piece together what I intended to do. Would that be a scenario you'd be interested in, Fuka? I asked. I knew you were special, Naruto-kun, but I wonder how you will do it. It won't be easy, you know. That's good, then. If it were easy, then it's not worth my time. But it will be easy, Fuka replied. How? Because I'm on your side. I chuckled at Fuka's declaration. But I was grateful for her support. After all, she would be my trump card against Miyabi Nagamo, and the brilliant woman that was Fuka Kiryuin knew of this fact. I've made my first move, Nagamo-senpai. I wonder. How would you react to an opponent you didn't even know you had? Maelstrom Manabu Horikita. There are things people would be surprised to discover. For example, that I didn't attend this school to satisfy any burning ambitions. While I did try to excel, for the most part, I was aimless in doing so. I didn't know what I wanted in life, whether that be desiring a future in politics, medicine, or research. I had none of that. For better or worse, I liked to avoid drama. I spent my days working, indifferent and detached, merely focused upon completing the tasks assigned to me. To set an example. To be a role model. I believed this was the right thing to do. However, one man continues to take action against me, trying to eliminate my ideals as he selfishly carves his own path. Miyabi Nagamo, my current vice president. A man who, if I could compare him to anything, would be a bulldozer. Unfortunately, I was born a year older than him. It is fruitless to take action against him, especially since I'd be gone soon anyways. Regardless of what I try to do, Nagamo has time in his favor. And one way or another, his ideals will prevail. Or at least, that was supposed to be the case. This is the school that nurtures Japan's future leaders, correct? Naruto Uzumaki. What an interesting man. As elementary as those words sounded, it held a profound meaning, one that flew over both Tachibana and Nagamo. Uzumaki had directly challenged Miyabi Nagamo, and only he and I knows this. That said, I currently find myself glued to the form Uzumaki had submitted before the interview. What good can a passive government bring to the people? All it does is retain the damaging status quo that led to people leaning to the principles of pragmatism and nihilism. What we see in this school is no different. The S system is a joke, but at the same time, it provides a counterbalance that puts an immediate halt to extreme ideologies like, let's say, an ultimate meritocratic system. It is unrealistic and counterproductive. Society isn't a homogenized gathering of the elite, it comprises people from all walks of life. Should I be part of the student council, I would work to address the glaring holes in this school. The answer to that would be a fair system that benefits not just those blessed with talent. If that vision sounds enticing, then there's only one thing left to do. Allow me to be part of the student council. I wonder if he could provide a balance to the ideals Nagamo and I carry. I'll be keeping my eye on you, Uzumaki. You better not disappoint. Live up to your name, Maelstrom. That will be it for this chapter.